Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. We do apologize, it's been a while. I have actually been on holidays and took some medical leave. But for those that are new here, I am Ryan John Murphy. I am a Microsoft Data Security SE and Compliance SE here in United Kingdom. And as always, I am joined by Heather. Heather, it's been a long time. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it has been a while, Ryan. I'm Heather Eckman. I'm a data security solutions engineer based in the US in California. Um, Background in eDiscovery. Uh, Always excited to talk M365 eDiscovery. But yeah, how have you been, Ryan? It's been a while.
It has been a while, yes, for sure. And the reason for that is, like I said, I took some leave. I actually spent 3 weeks over there in the US. Spent a week in Colorado, and then, as you know, I came and met you for dinner in San Francisco. I forget the area and the restaurant. Forgive me.
We were in North Beach, which is a bunch of
That's
Italian
it.
restaurants, and it
Yeah.
was it was a gorgeous night. We had such a good time.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It was really nice. The food was amazing as well. If anybody's out that way, do go. We'll put the name of the restaurant in the
I think
chat
our
as well.
spouses were a little tired of hearing us talk about
Yeah, we talk
Microsoft and
shop a
Discovery.
lot, right? We
We
talk
did, but
shop a
it
lot.
was still a good time. So next time you're over here, we'll get together again.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It was amazing to meet up like that. But there's a lot of things changing in the discovery world, So there's
Yep.
a lot to talk about. And then I came back from my holiday. I think it was only a day, and then you went off on your holiday slash vacation. For those listening in the US,
Yep.
you spent some time away there as well, yeah.
Yep. Didn't do much of anything, which was nice. Did a lot of reading. Went to Cyndi Lauper's farewell tour, which was
Oh, happy
very
day.
awesome.
Cindy
So,
Lauper, there's a blast from the past, right?
yep, blast from the past for sure.
Mm,
So yeah, it was some good time off as Microsoft changed into the new fiscal year. So, and
yes.
then I came back and
Then I went off on medical leave for a few weeks. I just had surgery. I'm just recovering from that at the moment. So this has been our first opportunity to actually come together and do a podcast with all the changes here at Microsoft. There's been a lot of training going on. There's been a lot of FY26 planning meetings. So we didn't really have the opportunity until today. So on that point, should we get straight into it?
yep,
No, yeah.
absolutely.
When
Yep. And I think we are back to a regular schedule. We'll be releasing episodes on a regular basis again, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, me too. And I think, as I mentioned just a moment ago, this e-discovery solution is going through huge changes in the background. There is a lot of things coming down the line. There's obviously a lot that Heather and I can't say at this moment in time, but having looked through, we did a quick sense check earlier in the week of, well, what's on the roadmap, what's coming down the line, what we know about internally. And I can honestly say, for those that have adopted the Discovery Premium service, wow, there's a huge amount of things coming down the line, seriously. And if you want to know about those, you want to keep up to date with them, Heather and I have the MSE eDiscovery in Focus newsletter. Me and Heather come together once a month. We put our heads together and pull out the best stories. I'll pull a few roadmap items out that have reached my attention. Heather will do the same. We put this into a collaborative newsletter. And as you can see, there's a little breakdown here of that the fact we've been away, but we're now recording the podcast again. So we've got a little we're back. Sorry, it's been a while option section, I should say. Then top of mind for this month, upcoming changes Purview eDiscovery. Um, as I mentioned in the newsletter here, it is classic eDiscovery Premium has now gone away. Okay, if you're struggling with that, then I definitely highly recommend you get in touch with somebody at Microsoft. Official new UI UX learning documentation. People are still learning about the new UI UX, right, Heather? From the interactions that we've had from people online on LinkedIn, some of the emails that we've had, some of the comments to some of the chats, some of the comments that I've had in person from people at work and people outside of work. Same for you, Heather. People are still trying to get their head around the new UI UX.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And one thing that I have found is a lot of customers that have premium have that E5 license, but for years they
Yeah.
have been using E3 or standard, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden they have all of these options in premium. So they're trying to keep their same workflows, their same process, while learning what these new features are. So it's been an interesting and exciting experience to kind of show some of those new features. But yeah,
Definitely.
I feel like a lot of people are still getting used to the new UI and the new documentation.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Which leads me on nicely to the new UI UX Ninja Guide. Now, this Ninja Guide, it follows the same aspect of the other learnings and the other Ninja Guide, but this is dedicated now to the new UI UX. So everything that you read in there is going to be specific to the new world. If you're just skilling up, if you're already skilled from the classic version, you're still trying to work things out, you're still trying to figure out what does what, where it does it, or even trying to figure out some of the new roles and features, definitely give this a go, because this has had some great feedback internally here at Microsoft, specifically with the guys that I work with here in the UK and EMEA and the UK and Ireland, and even some of the contacts that we've spoken to in the US as well. So people are starting to come around, understanding it. It's very good. It gives you like a basic, intermediate, and advanced way to work through the ninja skills, as does them all for the purview sector. So if you're new or if you're a seasoned, professional and you just want to know a little bit more about the new UI UX, definitely go through that training guide. It is absolutely going to help you out. Some roadmap items. So modern e-discovery enhancements. I mean, this particular ID here has changed a couple of times now, hasn't it, Heather?
Yep,
But as it does that, more and more features, role changes, tweaks to solutions are coming in. The one thing that stood out to me the most was this here, Heather. I know we mentioned this the other day. Is the
yep,
delete searches aspect. I personally really like that. I know one of my customers really likes that. They're like, oh, just, because I've got like 6, 7 searches in there, Ryan, and I'm confused about what they're doing and so on and so forth. Kind of a poor governance management, if you like, from that aspect. But now you have the ability to delete them. I think as well in the conditions builder within the keyword, and I can show you this later on in another episode, you now get the flexibility of using those Boolean statements directly in the keyword without having to flip it to the keyword query language. I've been using so much custom query language today, I nearly confused myself. The keyword query language bit. So that's the ability of that as well. This is a great one as well. And I think this ties in with what we were talking about just above there with people moving on to the new UI UX and that classic shut off day. One of my customers just managed to get over in time. And when I showed them the new enhanced eDiscovery premium APIs and everything that it does, and there's a great blog for everybody that's out there by Alistair Sharp. I'll link it in the bio below in YouTube and Spotify, so people can go and have a look at that. And he basically goes through all of the new conditions, all of the new statements, and so on and so forth that are in there for you to give you a bit more of an understanding of what those enhanced/modern eDiscovery premium APIs will be when you're creating cases, managing cases, disposing cases, and so on and so forth. This is a big one, Heather. The
that is
amount of times
a
I was asked
very
about
big
this.
one.
Sorry, I cut her off there. Go on.
Nope, go ahead.
I was just going to say the amount of times I was asked about this, people bringing in non-Microsoft data into a review set, specifically my vertical retail and consumer goods, fast-moving consumer goods, managed services, and so on and so forth. They have a lot of line of business applications, and more often than not, some CCTV solutions that they want to bring in some of the logs from that and do some cross-referencing with instant messaging apps as well. And even probably in your area in FSI, you've got other data connectors that are out there that can bring in logs and communications from investment banking apps and so on and so
Yep.
forth.
We use the data connectors in
Yeah,
FSI quite a bit because of some of the regulations around regulated users. But beyond that, this is used to bring in other types of data that would be specific to eDiscovery that may not apply to other things.
yeah.
This is a big one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think as of like May or June, we had it in Classic. It's coming back in December. It's consumption based, so there is a small charge for it now.
Great point.
Um, but it's really a storage charge.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just be aware. I know I've gotten a lot of questions about this. It is coming back. Um,
Mm.
so, you know, it'll
Keep an
be
eye on
here
it.
before we know it.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And that's a great point about the consumption bit. I think there's a small fee involved per gigabyte. Last I read was around $20, but don't quote us on that.
I think
Somebody
it's
told.
yeah. Don't
Yeah.
quote us, but I think it's 20.
Yeah, $20. Again, if you click on the roadmap item, if you do go to the newsletter, you'll be able to see all of that type of information in there anyway. We would always advise, if you're not subscribed to this newsletter, go and subscribe to it, because we don't just put the newsletter information in here. We will put episodes. We'll also put some relevant information, important information in there too. Sometimes a lot of stuff doesn't make it to the newsletter or doesn't make it to the podcast because things are moving that fast. But Heather and I will always make sure, if there's something prominent, something as a priority, even after the fact of the recording, even after the fact of collaborating on the newsletter, we will add it in there, won't we, Heather? So
We
it's always,
also we also have a LinkedIn group that I think since we haven't been recording hasn't been very active, but
yeah.
let's get that active. That's a great place to share information,
Mm, yeah. And
share
also
some of
just
these updates.
Yeah, absolutely. And also on that point as well, the group is there for, and it's a safe space. Okay, we've been very limited on who we've invited into the group. So if you've got a couple of questions, you can't get something working, use it as a sounding board. Come in, let us know. Myself and Heather. There's also some prominent people at Microsoft. There's also some prominent people that use Microsoft Purview Discovery Premium Standard Content Search on a daily basis that can certainly help you out. There are some great people in that group. Come and join. Use it as a sounding board. Any problems, any questions, anything you're running into from an issue, or even if you just tweak, you're using a keyword query language, like somebody messaged me the other day saying, "Hey Ryan, I can't get this to work," and I noticed straight away that they had a small error in the query. I resolved that for him, went back, bang, within 20 minutes, he messaged me back with a screenshot saying, "Thanks, buddy, I got all my information there." So that's how useful it can be as a group.
Yep.
Okay, customer managed key support. Again, I think this has been asked for quite a number of times, and I know with the new UI, UX, I know with the new world of Purview, there's so much more that we can do. This is one of the main reasons why we wanted to move on to a new platform, is to provide everybody with a new look and feel, new features, new capabilities in the background when it comes to machine learning and AI, and now when it comes to encryption and sharing, the ability of those as well. So if you are a customer, potentially in Heather's world of FSI, where I've seen this use the most, customer managed key, if you've got a HYOK scenario where you've got to hold your own key and you've had to bring that key into M365 and do the double encryption with it, the customer managed key support, you've now got that ability in there as well to do that de-encrypt as well. There are some still prereqs that you need to go through. So again, go to the newsletter, click on the resource, understand what it means for you, understand the documentation to ensure you get the best out of it. eDiscovery Premium Hold Reports. Again,
This is
another
a
great
big one.
addition. Yeah, another great addition. And I like the fact we've got out of the box reports that contain information about all legal holds associated with eDiscovery cases in the Microsoft Compliance Portal. What's not to like, Heather?
Yep. And this is something that we were working on with Classic. And I think with moving to the new UI and the new platform, the reporting will just be better than what it was in the Classic.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And just as a fail safe, Definitely not a cheeky input. We've put the podcast in here for you to keep an eye on. Obviously, as we do these, we'll keep growing them out to a point. We don't want to just half the newsletter just be podcast. We'll put 5 in at a time. So when we go on to episode 6, of course, we'll flip it round and it'll be 6 to 11 and so on and so forth. So just so you can keep an eye on them, just so you can keep update with it. We do really appreciate you and everybody that watches or listens to the podcast. If you can help us out, it helps us out a lot more. And I know a lot of podcasters say this. Do give us a like and subscribe. Do share this with somebody else. You would not believe when you go into some of the forums nowadays that how many people are asking questions about eDiscovery. Some of them still working on the classic version. This, Heather and I feel, is a good resource for them to consume, whether they want to watch, whether they want to listen, whether they want to ask questions, or as we've said before, if you want to offer up a particular episode that you want to do Heather and I to do a deep dive on, feel free. The email is right at the address. The email address is at the bottom of the page there. Give us a shout. We are more than happy to consider it. We're more than happy to help out. Give us a like. Give us a
Yeah,
subscribe.
I would love to hear feedback on different topics that people may want episodes on. I think, especially different scenarios, use cases, I think those are a lot of fun to talk about. So,
Yeah.
happy to take a look at those and do some episodes on those. And I see that you're pointing at the followers, and I'm looking at that, and I know what you're going to say. It would be really great if we get to 1,000.
Indeed. Indeed. You read my mind. You read my mind. I think it would be amazing to get that up to 1,000. I think that's a massive achievement for Ed and I, and for you as well as a watcher and a listener, and for everybody that subscribed to the newsletter. If I could get this newsletter up to 1,000 and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, that'd be amazing. We want this to be content that you want to consume. We want this to be for you. We have even talked about, between Heather and I, doing some Ask Me Anything sessions later in the year, potentially, or early in the next year, depending on how the next few episodes go. Again, if you want us to deep dive onto something, you got a question, plenty of resources. You've got the podcast, you got the newsletter, you got the group. Heather and I are constantly active on these. I'm based in the UK, so I can cover off some of the time zones around me. Heather's in the US on the West Coast. Heather can cover some times in her part as well. But we appreciate it. Thank you very much. One last thing, Heather, we wanted to raise your attention on is is the following blog. Okay. Now, this is on the Teams blog, but this is very, very, very important when it comes to eDiscovery practitioners, investigators, even those who are running DSARs and subject right requests here in Europe. What this means is there's a change to how the private channels are actually hosted from a data perspective. All right. We want you to be able to consume this because if you see organizations with compliance policies, retention, legal hold, DLP, and eDiscovery for private channels must ensure those policies are also applied to the team's group scope before migration begins. Okay. Existing policies for user mailboxes will continue to apply post-migration. New private channel data will be governed by policies of the group mailbox. Let's just unwrap that a little for a second. Everything now to do with a private channel is going to go into the mailbox when it comes to the messages, those private channel messages. To date, they actually go into the user's mailbox. So, for example, if you have a legal hold on a user because you have interest in that repository of a private channel, that data is going to move into that group mailbox that represents that channel, that private channel. The same goes for retention and the same goes for discoverability. If you're targeting a group mailbox, beg your pardon, if you pull the two custodians into the search where you've got the SharePoint site / Teams channel, which is the private channel, and you're looking for the messages between those users, said myself and Heather in the MSE Discovery Focus private chat. After a certain point, you're not going to pull those communications back unless you pull in the group mailbox. Okay.
Yep. And this is a really good change in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because previously you would have to target each user.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
for
gets
and
missed a lot, right, Heather? Oh, sorry,
yeah,
Heather.
this has been something that has been confusing for a while. And from an e-discovery perspective, it's always been based on, the way teams, the architecture around teams.
Yeah.
So, it made sense in that case, but from an e-discovery perspective, it was confusing. There was always a bit of a challenge there. So this change, um, is going to make things easier, but it's just being aware that the change is happening and what
Mm.
it is. So
Yeah.
definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Heather and I will include this into the bio of the YouTube and of course the Spotify chat description box, if you like, because we really feel that this is a very prominent change, not just for the team's infrastructure, obviously for anybody that's discovering, retaining, preserving this type of data. To complement that, I have another podcast called All Things M365 Compliance that I run with my co-host Nikki Chappell. We did a dedicated episode on this where we do a deep dive into it. It's, it goes to 20 minutes long. It's a really good introduction to what it is, what you need to be doing, what you need to be looking out for, and it emphasizes and expands on what Heather and I have just said there as well. So again, I will include this in the description of the YouTube and of course the Spotify.
Yeah, and this is that's a great podcast,
Thank you.
for a broader M365, especially from the compliance data security piece of it. And I don't really know Nikki other than through, the podcast, but she just seems amazing. And I would love to maybe have her on sometime as a guest as well if we have something, specific around that. But that I think is a good podcast to complement this from the discovery perspective.
Oh, thank you, Heather. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Nikki is amazing. I'm so lucky to have yourself and Nikki as co-hosts. But if anybody wants to know a little bit more of the broader spectrum of Purview, that's definitely a good resource. Like Heather said, we talk about all things M365 compliance, but this is a dedicated e-discovery podcast that is dedicated to everything else. Again, I'd like a subscriber over that way as well, if you can do. I'm asking a lot today. Okay, let's get into it then, Heather. So I think this is probably the last in the series of going through the conditions. Today we're going to go through Exchange Online mailboxes and SharePoint. You can see there's only 16 between them. Nevertheless, that doesn't make them less important. And then what I'm going to do towards the end, or what Heather and I are going to do towards the end, is just take you through some of the eDiscovery standard conditions. Okay. So what Heather and I have showed you over the last few episodes is purely based on eDiscovery Premium. We target that application, sorry, beg your pardon, we target that solution because obviously it has all the bells and whistles, has all the roles, all the features. So it's very easy for us to go in there and show you the capabilities of it. Nevertheless, there are some restrictions on some, and I'll emphasize some of the conditions that's available in eDiscovery Standard. I think Heather and I counted 7. Is that right? 7 or 8, Heather, from
Something like
memory?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we will
just
take you through. Yeah, exactly. We will take you through them in just a moment. So let's get going then. So Exchange Online, I think from my experiences, Heather, and even talking to you way, way, way back in the past, and other customers and other people that are rediscovery practitioners, mailboxes are really the predominant data source, data set, location that gets discovered, put on hold, and so on and so forth. So it's really important for you to understand what to use from a conditions perspective. Okay.
yep, I would agree with that. I think, you know, from the perspective of litigation, a lot of times it's, email, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint.
Mm,
But I think investigations, a lot of times it's that communication. So Teams and Exchange,
mm.
or Teams and email, which would be Exchange. So uh, this is where I see a bulk of the searching being done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And apology for my annoying anybody fidgeting around in my chair. As I mentioned before, I've just had surgery, so I find a comfortable location for 2 minutes, then it's uncomfortable, then I find another one for another 2 minutes. So I'm going to kind of spin around in my chair a little bit. So hopefully I don't make anybody seasick today who's watching this. So Exchange Online mailboxes. So straight away I can see message kind there. So again, I think if I'm using a keyword query language header and I only want to bring back email, this is a great condition to have in
Mm-hmm.
place. But even so, Heather, and I guess when we go through how to construct queries and craft queries, we will do a deep dive into these as well. But message kind is also very good if you just want the IM messages. So, in
Yep.
inverted commas, Microsoft Teams messages. So that's where you can use this to differentiate between the two. The amount of times where I've seen people use subject or topic or something like that that goes and grabs a load of that information, emails and messages, can generally give you a little bit too much data. As Heather just mentioned, people want to be very targeted about what they want to bring back. So if you just want emails, take advantage of the message can. If you just want IM, again, take advantage of the message can. Sorry, Heather, I think I cut you
Yep.
off.
This is used a lot in investigations,
Mm,
because a lot of times what I've seen is we're looking for emails or we're looking for Teams messages between these parties.
yeah.
Like I would say, most of the investigation collections that I've done have have either been Teams or Exchange. So definitely, this is something that I've used quite a bit.
Okay, perfect. I just made that a little bit bigger. I hope that's better for people. Um, just so I can zoom in a little bit more. Um, yeah, so I think that we just covered message kind there. Now, participants, and I smile when I say that. I just saw Heather did the same thing there. I see this overused as a condition. And I get it in some aspects, Heather. If you've got that early case assessment going on and you're not really too sure who's involved with what, then participants is great for email and chat. Okay. And I'm just gonna highlight the chat there, is because people tend to gravitate to use this towards thinking it's just for email, but this is a great way to pull back chat information as well. So let's say, for example, is if you as an investigator know Heather is part of that team's chat, and you can kind of get a date range, or you just want to do an initial lookup of it, you can use participants. So Heather could come to you and say, well, I definitely know Heather, Ryan, and Bill Gates were a part of this conversation. Use them as your participants, okay? Because that brings back anything that beyond those three people, beyond that scope of those three individuals. The same goes for email as well, because you've got the from, to, CC, BCC. Okay. I have had a little bit of feedback on this saying that people were thinking it says from to CCBC, but it's not. From is the actual condition that's included in this. Maybe they should be a little comma after each of them
Yep.
just so people
Yeah.
can see. Okay, but from is definitely there as a condition. So again, if you want that wider scope of who's involved in a particular email or a particular team chat, participants is going to be great for you because you're able to pull back where those individuals are a participant of that email or that chat. I'm just going to jump across to sender and to two, as you can see here, right? Now, sorry, received as well. I thought there was three in my mind there. Received, sender. Let me just highlight them just so we can kind of see where we're getting
Recipients.
recipients as well.
Yep.
Oh yeah, great one. Thank you. So those four, okay. Those four kind of make up what you've got in the participants piece, right? Because somebody's a from, which is me to Heather, somebody's a to, somebody's a CC, somebody's a BC. So that would cover your received. I beg your pardon, that would cover your recipients, your sender, and your to. Okay, but if you want to be really refined and say Heather was the sender, and Heather sent that to two people, which was Ryan and Bill Gates, then I would definitely use these two. Agreed, Heather?
I completely agree. And I agree from the perspective that I've seen participants maybe overused, where it's just easy.
Yeah.
Any place where this particular custodian or this particular person was involved in a chat or was on the to from CC, you know, BCC line, you know, bring that back. But, you know, you wind up getting a lot of unnecessary, irrelevant data back. So I think if you can find ways to target, it's great. Again, from the investigation standpoint, a lot of times the criteria around the data that we're looking for is a lot more targeted. So I've
Yeah.
definitely used the sender and recipients in investigations. I've actually found that, unless it is kind of like an early case assessment for litigation, I rarely use the participant. So
Yeah.
I typically have more targeted searches. And yes, it might be easy to, just use that participants, but then you're bringing back more data. It's going to take longer to get it into a review set or export. So I'm a
Mm.
very big fan of, as much as you can minimize at this stage, the better off you'll be downstream.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, not to repeat the mantra of Heather and I throughout the last few episodes, is if you can refine your search, the data in the background you pull back in a review set, it's going to be a lot easier for it to call through. Obviously, that has to fit with the requirements and the investigation that you're on. As Heather was saying there, if it's an early case assessment, then have at it. You can basically do a wider scope. But when you start really filtering in, or you've got a very unique, specific use case, then start to use the conditions that are here to your advantage, because that is, of course, going to give you a very close knit on the data that you're pulling back. Amazing. Item class. I should highlight these as I go through. Sorry. Item class. This I find confuses a lot of people, including myself when I first started gravitating towards helping customers with eDiscovery. Now, it says message class property of an email, but it doesn't just mean the email. For example, I see this used quite a lot now for Copilot. So if anybody has seen the metadata attribute where it says IPM.task or IPM.calendar, they might not be the accurate terminology for them, or IPM. I think Copilot.bizchat, Copilot.word, and so on and so forth. That's what this means. It's literally targeting the item class on the metadata. There's some probably other examples that we can give as well, right, Heather, around that item class. I'll paste a couple in actually for later on, and we'll go through these in a bit more detail anyway. A lot of people get these two confused as the same thing. So what I've seen before is item class equals email, item class equals IM. Now, because because the actual metadata property in the background and the data that's injected into that metadata is very different, it's always going to pull back nothingness in the aspect if you're using message kind for the item class. So the Microsoft does have a dedicated page on all of the IPM dot subtree classes, if you like, that you can go and search on. But as I said, more often than not, I see this used for .draft, .task, .calendar items, and more recently around all of the Copilot interactions that you can pull back from within a case.
Yep, and that's I see this used a lot to kind of filter out. I don't want to say junk or anything like that, but like again,
Oh, here we go.
targeting what types of data in the Exchange mailbox that you're looking for. So
Yeah.
one that I did a lot of testing around forms at one point, spent months just
Oh,
digging into forms, getting to understand the architecture, getting to understand best practices from an eDiscovery perspective. So I use the IPM for forms quite a bit. So this just can help target a little bit better. And I think, like you said, with Copilot now, I think that it makes it a little bit more relevant. And I think as Microsoft continues to you know, get into, continues to roll out new apps,
Yeah,
continues
right.
on the AI journey. We're always rolling out things like
Mm.
Loop and, new apps, new tools. This list is going to grow, and I think it will just make it even more important to understand these and use these as needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. And as you were talking there, Heather, I threw up on screen the Copilot ones. I thought I had it in the back of my mind where these were. And, you can see there for yourself, you've got all of these different types of elements down the left-hand side. This confuses people sometimes, Skype Teams, but I believe this is just purely down to the infrastructure that we adopted off
Yep.
Skype onto Teams. So if you do see these, don't worry, we're not trying to push you back to Skype 2013, Skype 2010,
Some
or
people may
whatever.
want that.
Yeah.
I don't, but some people may want Skype.
Yeah, they might do. You're absolutely right. But yeah, but don't be put off by that. They are in fact what they should be. They are going to get exactly what you want it to pull back from a discoverability perspective. It just so happens it has a legacy name in there as well. Received. Now, again, I think I'm probably going to say this a lot throughout the podcast that we do, from a historic perspective, Heather, even from a future perspective. And I think you just clicked onto it there with forms, which I'll come on to in just a second. But if you can really master how you put these conditions together to say, I want, and I think of this logically, I tell people to work backwards from the data that they want to collect. Using received and sent, it is a great way to really narrow down that collection, really narrow down that search, to not bring back a ton of data. The last thing you want as an e-discovery practitioner, the last thing you want as a DSAR admin is to have a bucket of data that's going to take you 4 or 5 days to cull down and filter through. As we go through these, try and understand where you can emphasize and help yourself and enhance the ability to find the relevant data that you've got. And I think received and sent is another great condition that you can use to do that. Received data and email was received by a recipient, sent data and email was sent by the sender. Using those two either together or in their own world where they're needed together definitely gives you the ability to start bringing back more relevant data.
Yep, I agree. And I do think as we dig deeper into these and other episodes, I think talking a little bit about, you know, all of the different dates, how dates are handled within M365, I think that would be a good deep dive because,
Mm.
with the cloud and cloud transformation, it's very different than what it used to be. So,
Mm.
when we were just dealing with PSTs and, hard drives,
Yeah.
date was pretty straightforward. Now, Exchange, kind of the same, but, especially when we start looking at SharePoint and OneDrive, there are a
Yeah.
lot of nuances to it. So, I think that is something that we'll dig deeper into. I think sent is the most common when we're looking at dates around messages and emails and that communication. But I think received is something that is used quite a bit as well.
Yeah, quite right, quite right. And I must just say as well, just as a side topic for anybody listening right now, Heather and I definitely have some podcasts in scheduled to do some application based discoverability. Heather mentioned working through forms, and we do go into detail about this in the book as well. It, it's very, very important for you to understand the data landscape of M365 when you're doing your searches. And this is what we mentioned in the first episode. But we will do deep dives into each of those modalities, those applications in the background, because they are made up of many different things and data is hosted in different places, as we just mentioned at the front of the call with the Teams private chat channel changes, it's very important that you know where to go to discover that data, know where to go to retain and preserve that data as well. So we are definitely going to do something on Teams. We're definitely going to do something on SharePoint and on Forms, maybe even Loop. And a lot of people that I've spoken to here that don't know you can even collect OneNotes. OneNote files in there as well. So maybe we'd include that at some point as
All
well.
of the stuff that a lot of us probably have some PTSD around. Um,
Indeed.
but it's something that I will say over and over and over again. To be an M365 eDiscovery expert is not just to be an expert on the eDiscovery tool. You need
Mm,
to be an expert on all of the different workloads, all of the different applications, and
mm.
not just where data is stored, but how the data is stored, the architecture, what the metadata looks like. And that's the stuff that I love. So, we will definitely dig into that, and also look at workflows. We could probably spend a year just talking about collecting stuff in Teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why Heather and I really thought an actual artifact for somebody to consume, whether it be a podcast, whether it be audio visual, or even with the book. We are spending so much time ensuring that this book is going to be everything that we can make it, everything that we can include up to the point of publishing. We can't include everything, of course, because as we're writing, Microsoft is still bringing out some changes to the rules and features, some of the solutions, some advanced features, and so on and so forth. But hey ho, who knows? If it sells well, and Pact, who have been amazing with us, give us the opportunity to do a version 2, we can definitely include those as well. So that's the Microsoft eDiscovery in depth book that Heather and I are working on. All of this and everything that we go through in here is there in an artifact that you can refer to at any point, and within more detail as well. On to the next one here, the subject. So this this I feel I don't know. I love to use it where I can, but I don't see it used enough. But I do see it used more often than it should do in other places, if that makes sense. Using the subject, I really like this from the fact of, if you've had an email come in and it be an email that has, goes against your business etiquette, or it's an email that has a phishing link in, or malware on, or something like that, this is very good for searching that particular subject of the email, because you don't know when it landed, right? Somebody can share that with somebody else, search for the actual subject of the email, and then you can pull that through. And if you have the right permission in the background, you can just purge it out. But again, I would imagine, Heather, coming from more of your world historically as an e-discovery practitioner, this can really save you time if you do know that subject.
It can save you time if you know the subject. One place where I have seen this used, and this really comes down to business users, just SOPs. It really comes down to the organization and how well people follow it. But I will see this used sometimes when organizations, especially legal, put something in the subject like attorney-client privilege,
Yeah.
or we have tried in FSI to come up with some just different things to put in, like if it's internal, if it's just a notification where there's no action. Um, it worked at first, but then as we've grown, it's something hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
So that really comes down to how the organization, can implement that. But organizations that have done that successfully, where attorney-client privilege communication, if it is in the subject, that makes it really easy here to filter those out, or
Mm.
you know. If you're, for whatever reason, just looking for those, search just for those. But yeah, or even, if you're, you know, trying to filter out junk email, this might be a place
Yeah.
where, there are other ways using domains and review sets or whatever. But, again, it really comes down to, what are you looking to include, and, what can you exclude as far as, completely non-relevant data.
Yeah, yeah. And as you were talking as well, Heather, a point came up. I was helping a customer a few weeks back now where they was running a subject write request, and they was bringing back a lot of generic internal information that's just broadcasted
Mhm.
across everybody. And luckily, they did prefix all communications that come from a particular distribution group or M365 group, as they're now called. They did prefix it with something. So all I said to the lady is just do as where subject does not contain, and then automatically when she was looking at those samples that are being brought back, she sees they're not included in that data set then, which made it far more easier to read of that individual. So that's a great point as well. Use it from a positive and use it from a negative perspective
Yep.
as well. Okay, topic. I really like this, and I think it's kind of a relevant, kind of a new one in the world, if you of eDiscovery, if you like, from my perspective, where you can look up a conversation topic or a team's subject of that channel post. So again, going back to if it's a private channel, if it's a normal channel, if it's a group chat, if it's a one-to-one chat or a one-to-many chat, I myself, whenever I'm in a chat, I'll always change the name of that chat header so it's something relevant. And if it, if there's a customer in there, I'll add an E dash. If it's not, if it's just internal, I'll add an I dash. Even between you and I, when we've had conversations on different groups and so on and so forth, I'll always try and name that group something. Okay. This is a great way, again, if somebody's under investigation or you want to look for something specific and you know that the actual topic naming convention of that conversation or channel post. This is a great way just to target that and bring everything about that back as well, right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, this is one that I have not used a lot. Like I just haven't
Mm.
um, trained my brain to
To
go
use
to that.
it.
And
Me
I've
too.
probably wasted quite a bit of time when I
Yeah,
could be using this.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
especially now with just in Teams, people creating so many group chats, and the first thing that most people do is just rename it. And I don't know about you, but like I have
yeah,
many group chats where it's like the same core group of people, and then there's like one or two people that are different. And if it
yeah.
wasn't for that you know, changing that name, I wouldn't remember them. So I think that this is something that's really useful.
I did test this, and I'll have to test it again because I can't quite put my memory on if me and you create a chat now header and we use that chat for 3 to 4 days, then we change the name of that chat. I am pretty certain it brings back the retrospective messages as well because it's mapped to the conversation ID. I'm pretty sure it does, but again, we could
I
probably
don't
take.
know for sure. I would imagine that you're right.
Yeah,
That that name is tied to the conversation on the back end. So that's
yeah,
something that we'll test, and maybe we'll post that
yeah.
in the LinkedIn group or somewhere.
We can do that when we do the Teams application
Yep.
discoverability. We'll add that in for sure. Okay, perfect. Right. On to the last six, which are pretty self explanatory, I think, from a SharePoint perspective. There's a few new ones, couple of new ones in here, I should say, which is sensitive type and sensitivity labels, which we'll come on to in just a moment. But author, again, very good. If you know the individual that created that particular document, you can target that author and bring that back. But I guess with that header, just to ensure that you're going to the right repository, like SharePoint or OneDrive, just to ensure you're not bringing everything back on that SharePoint site where that individual has been an author. Try and use, a dedicated site if you can do. Try and use their OneDrive if you can use. Try and use the date range that we said before. Try and use other elements as well, like the title, which I'm coming on to now, which is kind of like the subject of the email, but just the title of the document. So that is what is the document called.
Yep. And I see this one actually being used less and less because of the collaborative nature
Yeah.
of M365 and the fact
Mm.
that, the sharing and collaboration is more widely used than what it used to be, where
Yeah.
a lot of times the author isn't necessarily known.
Mm, mm,
So a lot of
mm,
times it's, a file sitting on a SharePoint site or a OneDrive, and, it could be, someone created this SharePoint file a while ago and nobody even remembers, but you know, there have been multiple contributors, or the entire organization has access. So it can be useful, but I do think that you know it will slowly kind of be used less and less.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that also goes to the modified property as well. Just on that collaboration piece there, you could be searching for somebody that has a modified bio of Ryan John Murphy, but within a matter of minutes, seconds, hours, days, weeks, that can change to a great number of people, specifically if that is a document that is an in-process document that people have access to. That's something that some people go to a lot. That's going to flip around, continuously all the time. So great point, Heather. File type. Again, I think I was talking to a customer not too long ago now who didn't even know this was an option, and they was bringing back documents with a relevance of. They were searching for a wildcard in a wild name in the title, and bringing quite a lot back. And I was like, just use the file type, just use file type .xls, and it was, I can do that. I was like, yeah, of course you can do that. Yeah. Showed him how to do that straight away. Again, like I said before, that review set is really refined. One thing I do like this for, and I built my own denisting query out with this, is to denist all of the Microsoft system files away.
That's a good
Um,
idea. I've never thought of that, but that's a great kind of like tip and trick that, yeah,
Works
I think
well.
a lot of people would enjoy hearing more about that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this really relies more on the SharePoint and OneDrive aspect
Yep.
as well, because when you're looking at that infrastructure, because it's not custodian bound, it basically just does a good look through everything, and it has to look through everything to ensure that it brings everything back. And if there's other items in there, you've done a broad search against, a lot of SharePoint sites, you can get a lot of system files back. And you can, of course, filter them out based in the filtering inside of the review set. But why have all that data in there in the first place when you can just add it to your query? That's something we'll go through as well, denesting, culling of the data as well. We should do a part episode on that as well, I think, Heather.
Yep.
Sensitive type. So sensitive information type. So again, this has been one that's been asked for many, many times in my area, to bring in the ability to do a direct search against sensitive information type. This does include custom sensitive information types as well as the default ones from Microsoft. So if you have custom sensitive information types, you can also bring back those as well. That
So
I
for
think,
those that are purely eDiscovery that may not dive into other parts of Purview, because I do find that um, sometimes, a lot of times, sensitive type is also called sensitive information type. You also hear it called SITs. These
yes,
are out of the box. You also hear them called classifiers sometimes, but these are out of the box, or like Ryan said, custom, so you can create your own custom pattern matching that will automatically run over data as it's created. And it's going to pick up things like social security number in the US, passport number, or passport ID, that information that will identify sensitive information types. So it's something that is used a lot to protect sensitive information, used in data loss prevention. And I think that this is great because this is a way that you can identify data or collect data based on those sensitive information types. So this is kind of bringing in one of the core foundations of Purview into eDiscovery, and then moving on to sensitivity labels, which a lot of times is based off of the sensitive info type. Um, this is just another level, and Ryan can talk about this, but I think what this does for the sensitivity labels is gives the ability to look at or collect data that would be labeled as, highly confidential, or, labeled based on, whatever that label is, which a lot of
Mm.
times is based around like confidentiality, or, who has access. So I can definitely see, if this is set up properly, this being very useful. I had a long conversation with a customer about this yesterday, as far as, revamping some of their classification and labeling, and how it relates to eDiscovery. So I had this conversation. I was super excited about it. But I think that, and I'm going to get my soapbox out, I think this goes back to making sure that making sure that there is collaboration between all of the various teams. So,
Yeah.
it's great if legal has like a basic understanding of, the label schema, what sensitive information types are important. I think it's important for, security, IT, to have an understanding of what's important to legal, and, really use the tools, to maximize what you can do for all of those functions, on top of, the business users. So
Yeah.
put my soapbox away. I'm done.
No, that is great explanation. I think again, something that's been asked for quite a lot. I know there was a way to do this in the classic version. You had to use the MSSIP ID and so on and so forth, which kind of looked at the metadata. But now we brought it in here. When you actually select this, it does actually bring your labels through that you have in your environment. So you can just literally just select one of them. You don't have to remember the GUID or anything. Same with the sent information types as well. So it's very easy for you to do. Again, Heather and I will do an episode either partly on this or dedicated to this as well. And last but by no means least, I think this is a great one, which a lot of people don't know about, Heather, specifically when they are looking at OneDrive and SharePoint for a folder. Okay.
Yeah, because this was one where you had to use like doc link
Yes.
before, as the, and it was in the documentation, but it was
Mm.
there from the perspective of like, I think more from like a legal hold. And once you learned it, it was easy to do. But now we just make it so much easier, because you just need to check a box.
That's it. And that's all you need to do. All you need, like it's saying there, is you need a URL to either the document, which is what the old document link used to be, or to the folder of where the information is sat in. This is great if you have 25, 50, 60,000 SharePoint sites and you just want to target a site, sorry, a folder on a site. And even that folder, from my experiences, can contain thousands of
Yep.
documents. You can pick out that, as you can be as specific as you want to be with this to actually get that item in the background. Like I said before, SharePoint is non-custodian bound, so it's going to bring everything back. But if you want to be very specific and only just bring a very nuanced item back or a very specific item back, use the path. It's definitely going to save you a lot of time from a review perspective.
Yep. I agree.
Amazing. Okay, so let's just go through one last thing that we wanted to go through today, which is the bit around, excuse me, let me just jump over to my eDiscovery standard search. Give me a moment. So cases, and then we've got eDiscovery standard features. Okay, and let's go to initial search. I just want you all to be able to see the differences in what's available with premium in comparison to what's available in standard. Now, as Heather and I said before, there are some differences. So if I just pull this down here and I just click on this, you can now see with this eDiscovery standard features case that some of these elements in here, like identifier, content kind, content source, application, topic, sensitive type, sensitivity labels, and path are all premium condition features. Okay. That, of course, therefore means you do need the Discovery Premium to actually utilize these as well. Okay. Now, also, there are some conditions here as well, like the topic and metacam where you can see on the front screen. Okay, just for everybody's sake, again, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they was looking at these thinking that's all that they had. You simply just need to click show more, and it brings out the more aspect in here as well. So for those that have an E3 license or around that E3 license, whether it be government, or exchange, I think it's the E3 incomplete, isn't it, Heather, if memory serves me right. If you have anything that's not an E5 license, probably a better way to put it,
Mm-hmm.
some of these features are not going to be available to you. Okay. Now, Heather and I wanted to let you know that because obviously we've gone through a lot the last couple of episodes. We want everybody to embrace the, eDiscovery as much as they possibly can for whatever licensing model that they're on. But just, just, just rest assured that the majority of them are there, but some of them are just premium features. If you're not using those, you see this in front of you here. Sadly, you don't have an E5 license to use.
Yep, and you'll see that with other options, configuration features. If you don't have E5 or those premium features, or you just have a case that you marked as standard, you'll see those options grayed out and you'll see premium next to it. If
Yeah,
you're in a premium case, all of the options will be available and you won't be able to really tell the difference between what's standard and what's premium
mhm.
because you're licensed for all of the features.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure those who are using standard know they're using standard. One thing to be very cautious of as well is that in the new UI UX, when you do create a new e-discovery case, it does default to premium. So for those that are using an E3 license, you might be using an E5 feature and not know about it. Let me just go and show you actually where you can change that, just for everybody's sake.
And Ryan, while you're doing that, I don't know about you, but I have had a lot of questions around licensing
Yeah,
and where the licensing aspect comes into play. And, where the licensing comes into play isn't necessarily who is accessing Purview,
yeah,
eDiscovery in Purview. Where the licensing comes into play is the end user.
yeah,
So if you're using premium features, any or you're in a premium case, any user that is going to be added as a data source into that case should have an E5 license.
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I think, let me just go back into that case. Just taking a moment to.
I marked that so you can cut this out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to that. And here's where you would actually make that change, Heather. As you can see here, I don't have the eDiscovery Premium toggle switched on, but when you do create a new case, it is switched on by default. That is going to change from what Heather and I are hearing, but it's not there just at this moment in time. So please do ensure if you have less than an E5 license, do come here and just toggle that off for all your cases. One of the easiest ways to figure out if you're using eDiscovery Premium is if you do have access to those conditions that we went through today and the review set. If you get the ability to add a review set, then you are using an E5 case. Heather and I would never want you to be out of your compliance agreement. So please do go and check that if you feel like you do have eDiscovery standard in your arsenal, as they say. Heather, bit of a bumper episode today.
Yep.
We thought we'd put a lot in because we've not been around the last few weeks for the reasons I mentioned at the front of the pod. So again, hopefully there's enough content in there to keep you going for a little bit. We do have some podcasts scheduled in already. Please do look out for those. Please do subscribe to the newsletter as well. As we're saying, there's a lot of information going in there at this moment of time. A lot of things going on here at Microsoft. So it's been amazing for you to join us again. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for joining
Yep.
us.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you, Ryan, and we'll
Indeed.
see everybody again in a couple of weeks.
Amazing. Thanks very much, all. See you next time.